Okay, good morning, Jeff. Thank you
Good.
for joining us for this discussion on Steeple Analysis in the context of contracting and supply chain management. I guess my first question to you is, what is Steeple Analysis?
Okay. Well, good morning to you, Ray, and thanks very much for the invitation to talk about this topic. Steeples analysis. Well, what is it? An interesting question. I think for many people who are involved in procurement and supply and contract management, it's something that many people will be aware of, but not all. It's very much what I would say a strategic planning tool or methodology, if you want to apply it in that way. And it's designed primarily to try to help organizations sort of find out a little bit more about what's going on in their environment, gives them an opportunity to consider or evaluate, if you like, what's happening in that environment and to start contemplating whether or not there are any potential risks or hazards that the business might face or their supply chain might face, and really just about getting them to think about, well, how can we organize ourselves to be in a better position to deal with those challenges.
I also guess there's an opportunity looking for opportunities as well as the negatives. They may well be opportunities that they see coming down the track, and they prepare themselves to be ready to meet those demands.
Yeah, I think so. It's really, when you start to look at Steepled itself and you start to consider, well, what does it stand for? It is an acronym at the end of the day. So it has a wide context. It's looking at the sort of elements, as I've said, around risk and things of that nature. But it could also open up opportunities as well for organizations. The more you know about what's going on around you, the more chance, of course, the business may well have of being able to take advantage of that. So you could argue to say, well, do you know what? This is a tool that we could use to give us that potential competitive advantage over the market that we're involved in. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, another point, of course, would be a steep analysis would give you more would give you agility as an organization because you know where to move and what to move out of and what I guess and what you to move into. So it gives you that
Yeah.
agility that you may lacking if you don't know what's happening in the marketplace or what's happening politically or economically and all the other points that are raised by the model.
I think so, and I think it's one of these things. When you start to think about, for example, that term agility, there, you've got to think about, well, where and how can we be seen to be more agile in our marketplace? Now, it could well be that, as I say, some of the particular letters that Steeple stand for give us that opportunity to think about where we could become more agile. So, for example, you might be looking at the sort of the T element of it, the technological area, and thinking, well, how can we use, for example, some of the tools that are on the horizon or coming into place at the moment, the new technologies? How can we use those to enhance and to speed up the processes that we have within our organization, or provide, better opportunities for our customers to access our products or our services in a faster and more efficient way. So yeah, we can see that it is about sort of recognizing that there are so many elements that go on in our business environment that agility can come from a wide variety of different elements. So technology would be a good example, I guess.
Yes, a good example. And also, of course, it, because of technology like AI, then this kind of data can be processed very quickly, rather than the traditional methods is quite wordy and quite long-winded. I would imagine AI would enable, the sort of data that's being fed into the model to be translated into business intelligence fairly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start to look at this analysis in relation to, for example, the supply chain itself, then we've also got to start to think about, well, the distribution processes that we're going through, the customer experiences that we're going through, and so it's about adapting our business strategy and our business structure to meet those needs and requirements of the marketplace that we're in. So, there may well be many social events that are taking place. The social nature of the world that we're operating in, can have an input into this. We start to look at different demographics of people and the different demographics of society and movements and needs and wants of customers. So many of these elements that we look at in relation to Steeple, play a role in making the model effective for organizations in whatever way that they choose to want to make them, deliver for their business. I think what I would say from the model is, if you want to make better decisions as an organization, then this is a tool that can help you to make those better decisions, because I think it's giving you a wider understanding of all the issues and all the events that are potentially taking place within a particular market or supply chain that a business might be involved in.
Absolutely. And also, of course, because the world we live in now is so open to challenge, open to risks, open to change. I mean, the world seems to change tariffs are a good example. Last year tariffs were not on the agenda, now they're on everybody's agenda. So it's a very dynamic environment that we're operating in. So therefore, I think people do need to keep their finger on the pulse, otherwise you can get left behind.
Absolutely. So you've got all those challenges taking place on the sort of economic front. Again, that stands for one of the letters, economic. And then, it doesn't end there, does it? Because, you've got so many other issues to take on board, the political challenges that the world's facing today. But I was only hearing last night, for example, on the news, how the Arctic is now becoming the next center of gravitation towards, because of the minerals that are there, and the fact that environmentally, another we're beginning to see the North Pole melting back to some degree. So again, you've got to be aware of all of these issues and challenges, and be best placed to try to become the sort of organization that's going to take the opportunities when they come along.
I noticed it was shown in the media that lots of big corporations are now building their factories further inland because of the expectation of sea level rising and low level areas being swamped, being flooded. So physically they're actually saying the water it's going to go up by a certain amount, and they are building their factories further inland and on high ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, environmentally, this has been on the cards for some time. Even if you think about many of the factories, for example, in Southeast Asia, that tended to be on the coast.
Exactly.
You only need a tsunami, as we saw way back in 2011 or 2012, when we had that big issue off the coast of Japan, which wiped out Toyota's factory. It was disastrous. But I think many universities are looking at work in terms of the sort of seismic events that may take place across the globe, and looking at other weather patterns. And you're absolutely right. Many of these manufacturing sites are being moved further inland, which obviously makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I guess this is a very important topic, and I'm sure it's covered in the course that you're running. The CIPS course that you run down in Basingstoke. I'm sure this must be a session that you and your team include in those lectures.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And we spend certainly when we're involved in the more strategic modules looking at tools like this, because for any organization it is about better planning. It is about improving your decision making. It is about getting control, if you like, of your risks, and it's always with anything like this. It's about sort of, well, how can these things all help us to become better at what we're doing and giving us that competitive edge, or competitive advantage, I think, as the term is often used. But certainly CIPS courses will definitely include this topic.
And also, because you can always run a course for one of our clients on this topic. I mean, you could make a day an
Yeah.
easy, I imagine, to fill up a 1 day course covering this topic quite easily, I would have thought.
Absolutely. When you start to delve into each of the various different categories and look at all the elements that spin off these various categories, and then start thinking about, well, if you did an exercise just on your own organization, you'd probably end up with a fair degree of data and insight, in relation to that. And it would be seen as a very, very worthwhile session,
Yeah.
an opportunity for your business to access that data, which may not necessarily always be something that people have time to do, or feel it's massively important in their day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, I mean, the classic statement is that most people don't find that they've got a risk until the risk actually happens,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
absolutely
it's
bang
too
on.
late. Then it's too late to manage it because it's already
Yeah,
become an event.
yeah. And,
Yeah,
and that's human nature, isn't it? We tend not to action stuff until it's actually happened, and then it's all hands in. But yeah, no, if you better planning in this would certainly circumvent many of these issues. And it's all part, isn't it? Sort of business recovery, business continuity, all these sort of things as well. It's just making sure that the business is constantly fit for purpose to meet the challenges and the issues that can come about at any time.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point in the conversation to stop. I think that's pretty
Yeah,
much a good summary of the topic, Jeff. Well,
yeah.
thank you very much for your time, and
Pleasure.
hopefully we'll have some more of these sessions sometime in the future.